So, the third adventure for the third Doctor was called The Ambassadors of Death, which is a bit misleading. They're actually the kidnapped ambassadors from outer space, forced to do misdeeds by some criminal thugs and a deranged general. So, this one, is the Silurians episode clearly set the standard by which the whole unit adventures would go, and of course this one follows suit. And one of the interesting things about it, when you look at like one of the episode guide for Pertwee's Doctor, it looks like he didn't get a whole lot, in his first season. It's only 4 adventures. But of course, the number of episodes are very long. So this one goes into 7 chapters and probably could have been shrunk down to 4. But I don't think it hurts it too much here. It's not as good as the Silurians episode, but it is in keeping with the sort of James Bond aspects they keep putting on to Pertwee's Doctor, because there's just it's a lot of I guess not quite espionage, but it seemed that they were suspecting that a foreign agent or what have you was manipulating these aliens into being assassins and whatnot. But basically, the whole premise was that this general, who had been an astronaut and had been on a previous mission to Mars, and unbeknownst to everyone, had encountered these aliens, and he perceived them as a threat. The aliens didn't understand that their touch was lethal to human beings, and so that's the whole thing. It's all a misunderstanding. But the general is threatened by them, and so he plots to destroy them and unite the world against them in the hopes that he could prevent a worldwide invasion. And he refers to this as his moral duty. And so he's supposedly the villain here, but he's kind of portrayed as just, misunderstanding the things, and he's just wrong. Whereas the crew that he hires are just a bunch of criminal thugs, and their leader has his own plans for the assassin. He's like, wow, we could rob Fort Knox with these guys and do it even better than Goldfinger did, which was to irradiate the gold supply so that his gold would be more valuable. But anyway, so you had that, and a lot of chases and stuff is in here, the fights and shootouts and whatnot. So it kind of fits in with the sort of the action spy genre, when you have military people involved, and the Doctor's there to try to figure it out. And of course, a lot of people don't understand him. They don't like him being there. Who is this guy? And the Brigadier's like, well, he's this guy. And that sort of thing. But pretty quickly, he does ingratiate himself with the head of the space program, and he's pretty much accepting of him because the Doctor kind of proves himself pretty quickly. And there's all different people who could be a traitor, who couldn't be, and there's different layers of the plot. And at first, they think the general would say, well, we're trying to find people who are trying to sabotage the space program, all this type of stuff, and it's all a charade. And ultimately, the general, of course, was the villain in all of this. And the aliens themselves were simply trying to make contact, and that's all it was. But when they make contact, you die. So I wasn't quite clear on this, where they have difficulty communicating, and the Doctor had to figure out a means by which we could understand them and all this sort of thing. But the criminals, they're able to develop a device which could send signals and directions to the captured aliens. Why would they obey it? I'm not entirely certain. That was it painful for them and they had to, or they just sort of get on the van when they're captured, and they switched. They stole the suits from the Mars probe astronauts who were being held on the alien spaceship all this time. under deep hypnosis apparently, and the aliens took their outfits, both for their protection and ours, I guess, because they're radioactive people, and they need radiation to survive, and all that sort of thing. And but it gives the creepy effect, and which is the best part of the show. And when you see the promos for it and the poses with the spooky astronauts, and you can't see their face, which adds to the creepiness of them. So well done on that. But that's about it. I'm not quite sure how they could have gotten complete control of them in that manner. And plus, the Doctor immediately catches on that the aliens are being manipulated and used. Well, there's nothing really to tell him that. He doesn't know that. It turns out to be the case, but I think they should have kept that line out of it until he actually meets with him. The Doctor hops in the ship to go, because he already figures out that these aren't the astronauts you're looking for. They're still up in space. And so he goes to connect to the Mars probe, and here comes the alien spaceship. And then he finds the astronauts, and they tell him the whole story. He says, well, we made contact with these people, and they captured our ambassadors, and what's going on? They're on the verge of attacking Earth now. So that's how it should have been handled, with the Doctor finding out, rather than him just assuming it, because what did he have to make the assumption? But it's a minor detail. But the rest of it flows through. They try to kill the Doctor. They do capture him, and all this. Liz Shaw gets captured, and then she's forced to help the crooks and this sort of thing, back and forth with all that type of thing. And ultimately, the Doctor solves everything. There was interesting side notes, if you have the DVD extras, where they talk about apparently Carolyn John, who plays Liz Shaw, was pregnant during this episode. And there's a big chase scene, but of course it's not her, it's a stunt man wearing a wig. But it all works out. There are some scenes where the technical aspects are not that bad. Actually, when they show the capsule linking up with the Mars probe, it's not that bad. And actually, it's kind of what it looks like when they would do things like that in those days. And then there were scenes where the Doctor's in his rocket going into orbit, and it's not too. So it's kind of weird how it's like one scene you get really well and other scenes you don't. And I don't know if and keep in mind, this is right in the middle of when the Apollo program's still going on, or just getting started, or what have you. And well, not getting started, but they've already had the moon landing at that point, but still, they were still doing them. And I don't know what the deal was of what access you had to the footage of the rockets taking off, because if they'd had access to that, probably just could have done that. I know Star Trek had already had an episode where they just used the stock footage of the Saturn rockets taking off and that sort of thing. So it might have helped a little bit, but you deal with what you got. But it's just kind of jarring how that looked kind of bad, whereas the docking scene between the modules and the capsule, well, it was pretty good for the time that they had. So you get a lot of that. You get the Doctor still trying to fix the TARDIS, and it's clear, even though he at first he has no interest in this, but then he sees that on the television they have it, and they show the BBC covering this launch, and they do it a slightly bit different than they do it here in the States about how they covered it. Since I don't know, I always got to, because I remember doing that with some of the Monty Python shows. It's just, I don't know, I always get a chuckle out of it. But anyway, and so you continue with that, where he's trying to repair the TARDIS, and he just can't quite get it. And you realize that, boy, if he could repair it, he'd leave. So he just gets distracted by what's on look on the news, there's some problem with the astronauts. Oh, what's this? And off he goes on an adventure. But and it also creates a problem for him, because if he had the TARDIS, he could have just gone and gotten the astronauts. But he had to use a crappy, antiquated old means of space travel. He's just sitting there, and they got scenes, so he's getting a little irritable, and he's bored with this. All right, come on, let's go. And it's all fitting and stuff like that. So, there's high points and low points in the show, but overall, a good episode. I wouldn't say it's as good as the first two, but not bad. But also, boy, the creepy factor of those astronauts, which turn out to be, they're innocent, but still a good look anyway. So there you go. The Ambassadors of Death. Doctor Who. So we'll check back again for Liz Shaw's final adventure with the Doctor, which is kind of sad, but, well, there you go. Which is one of my favorites of Pertwee's, Inferno, which adds an interesting element which I guess was never really pursued until the new Who show came on. That being multiple universes. Yes. All right, thank you for watching and listening. Why not like and subscribe, and check out that link description below. That'll take you to my many stores that have plenty of goodies for you.